recording. Hey, good evening. This is the May 29th, 2018 regular meeting of the Flemington Borough Council. The meeting is being held at the historic courthouse and in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, Sally, roll call, please.
Mr. Reiner?
Here.
Mr. Driver?
Here.
Mr. Gorman?
Here.
Mr. Hain?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Ms. Peterson? Here. Morton? Here.
Thank you. Okay, we start right out with the mayor and council reports. Let's see.
It's on the top.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Can you hear me okay? Okay.
I can.
Let's give it a try. All right, for mayor's report. On May 16th, I went to Trenton, met with a member of the governor's staff who was making the rounds with some of the mayors just to see what the issues are, and that was another good discussion. I'll say that is the second time in a month that I have attended a meeting prompted by the new governor's staff, so he is trying to make contact and get a feel for what our issues and hot topics are. On May 17th, I attended the Hunter and Helpline ribbon cutting. They are now located at 1 Maple Avenue, right behind the library. So we're glad they chose to stay in Flemington. On Saturday, May 19th, right here, I attended the Hold On to the Light meeting sponsored by Safe Harbor Child Access Center. This was an interesting session. It was the first time they've done this. It's a mental health awareness event. This courthouse was packed. I was here for about a half hour of it, and what they had was they're trying to promote awareness of mental illness. So they had various individuals and musicians telling their stories, sometimes in words, poetry, music. It was a good session. So I don't know if they'll keep doing it or not, but if they do, it's for a good cause. On May 24th, I attended another ribbon cutting at the Regus office rental business, which is located on the first floor over at the Spice Factory. If you are looking for part-time offices to rent, even down to for a day, you can do it over there. If you just need a place to go hang out and have audio-visual facilities or copy print, phone service, things like that. So they are a large operation, and they are now in Flemington, so we wish them well. On Friday, I attended the grand opening of the 2018 season at the filling station. Another great event. Yesterday was in the Memorial Day parade. And two other items. On May 23rd, I held an informal discussion with our Chief of Police, Director of Public Works, and the Executive Director of the Flemington Community Partnership to discuss some of the issues around how we are closing roads for events. And because we're getting some pushback from the businesses about it, and we had a very good talk about it, identified some action plans, and I'm scheduling a further discussion on that for the work session meeting at our next council meeting, which is June 11th. So it's 7 o'clock. If you're interested in road closures, how we do it, why we do it the way we do, and how we could make it better, then it'll be in here. Lastly, this evening at 5 o'clock, I met along with attorney Rob Beckelman and Flemington LLC group, one representative and their attorney, and Mr. Cust and his attorney, just 6 of us, which was a first that we all sat down and started to look at what can we do to try to address issues so that we can get everything going smoothly and quickly on our redevelopment project. The attorneys pointed out at the outset that because there is court action involved, that this constitutes what they call a settlement discussion, and so we can't really just give you a rundown of here's what we talked about and here's what happens next. This is not my doing. This is me being advised by all the attorneys that that's how it works when you have what they call settlement discussion. However, later on in this meeting, we already have an executive session scheduled for legal advice regarding property acquisition issues. And when we get there, we will also be able to, I think, have some legal advice to the council about the meeting and sort of where things are going. But unfortunately, all three parties are precluded at this point from making further statements until we hopefully get some things resolved. So that concludes my mayor's report. And let's see, I think this time we start, Michael, on your end, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of attending on Memorial Day parade. Thank you. Is this better, Lois? Thank you very much. I had the pleasure of attending the Memorial Day parade yesterday in Flemington. It really was a spectacular event. It was spectacular to stand at the monument and look down Main Street and you can see it crowded as we do at many of our events here on Main Street. I want to also say thank you to all of the different groups that have attended, all of those groups that were involved in our safety for that, and also the groups that were involved in cleaning up afterwards as well. So you can see our Main Street does not look like it had been an event from yesterday. I want to give a brief account regarding ongoing issue from animal control. This issue is occurring in Park Avenue. It's necessitating coordination between animal control and property maintenance. An issue of spayed and neutered cats on Park Avenue that are being fed by residents. There's going to be no issue in terms of having more cats, but there is an issue in terms of having a building that is not secure. So I'm working with Councilman Haynes and expect that there will be a response from property maintenance in that regard. Redevelopment Committee, this past Monday, the 21st, at the suggestion of the mayor, I met together with Councilperson Driver and Councilman Peterson, together with Mr. Romanowski, the owner of the Union Hotel and the Potting Shed building. At that time, he provided us with an account in terms of the status of his contractual arrangements with the designated developer, Flemington Central Urban Renewal LLC. He's told us that he has 2 contracts with the LLC, that he signed both of these contracts, and it's for the LLC to execute those contracts. So I'm reporting that here to the community. DPW has not met since our last council meeting, so I have nothing to discuss there. However, environmental did meet since our last council meeting. This is our first meeting for the year. We reviewed a commercial area market project that will provide expansion for Lone Eagle and a retro arcade on Stangle Road. Councilman Hay, thank you very much for leading that. It was a very interesting meeting and enjoyed having the opportunity to review the project and look at different environmental concerns so we can report that then went on to planning and zoning. Thank you.
I also marched in the parade to honor and remember our fallen military. It was great weather for it, and it was great to see so many friends and neighbors turn out for that great event, as well as stick around for the ceremony afterwards at the monument. I'm happy to announce that tonight is the debut of council meetings being live streamed via YouTube. So if you cannot attend, you can now watch them online. I met with the county IT person last week for nearly an hour, and we were able to figure out the technical problems that were keeping us from getting online. So I'm happy to announce that those problems have been fixed, and if you can't make it to council, you can watch us live. And of course, you can always watch it on tape afterwards. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll be notified every time the live stream is active. If you Google Historic Flemington YouTube, the link will come up. I checked that earlier today. There was a library board meeting on May 18th. We discussed the ongoing roof problems they're having, and I had recommended to the mayor that we go forward with replacing the flat part of the roof at this time due to the ongoing leakage and water infiltration into the building. That process is underway, and hopefully by the next meeting, Bill Hance will have the necessary information from the architect to prepare the bonding ordinance for it. The remainder of the work, which will be about half of the roof, kind of splitting this in half, the remainder of the work will be put off until the state grants for libraries become available late this year. Also, at the request of Warren Buckleitner at MediaTek, I spoke with the police chief, and we're going to try and schedule short periods of time when an officer can stop by MediaTek to play some video games with the teens who use that space. I see that as a win-win situation that allows our youth and our police officers to get to know each other in a non-confrontational way. The library board goes on a summer hiatus, and we will not be meeting again until late summer unless something major comes up. The movie called The Post will play on June 6th, and the library will be closed on June 5th for the primary election. I stopped by the filling station on Saturday evening. It was great to have it there again on Saturdays. The past year I've been working on Friday nights, so I was never really able to go. I'm happy that I can now go on Saturdays again, and I'm happy that's on the schedule. Afterwards, I stopped by DIY and was able to catch one set of music as their 4th anniversary celebration was winding down. And for DIY, we've reached a figure of them paying $650 a month that they'll pay monthly to cover their bills to the borough for their utilities and internet in the 90 Main Street. They had been getting billed quarterly or thereabouts quarterly, and I know it was quite a bit of work for the borough employees to pull those together. So hopefully this billing scheme will take some workload off the borough staff, as well as make the bills more predictable and manageable for the DIY people. They have submitted a sign proposal for over the door to the construction official and await the decision of the sign review committee on it. It's very simple. It's just black says Flemington DIY, and I don't believe there will be any problem. It's so low-key. I attended part of the mental health event, Hold On to the Light, as well. It was very crowded. I did not stay as long as I had hoped, and that was mostly because I couldn't get into the door. It was so crowded. So I spent some time downstairs talking to some of the high school students with their tables set up. And there's nothing to report from Rescue EMS or the fire department. I want to thank Phil for this meeting with the DPW and the police regarding street closures. I heard from a couple of businesses as well about the street being closed that night for the mental health, and I'm hopeful that we'll all be able to find a workable solution that can make everybody happy. I also wanted to make note that Michael did. I was there with a meeting with Steve Romanowski last week. He again called me this morning. He did say again today that Mr. Cust has contracts for the building sitting on his desk, and he's welcome to buy these buildings at any time. Unfortunately, from what I'm understanding, it appears Mr. Cust does not want to sign those contracts at this point because he wants to wait till building permits are in hand. And unfortunately, this whole situation is holding up a property owner from selling his property perhaps to somebody else who may want to do something with that. And that's it for me.
Mark.
Yes, as Councilman Harris mentioned, the Environmental Commission did meet on May 21st. We reviewed the plans for the Countryside Plaza. Gave our feedback to Planning Board. It is a very nice building that's going to be going in, a community center with some food areas and areas for entertainment on the second floor. So I think it's a win-win for the borough, and definitely kudos to the plan. I definitely support it. Parks and Rec, there was no meeting held on May 8th. They are continuing working on the summer recreation program and the online registration. This year so far is the highest registration that we've had with people signing up online. So it seems to be working very well. Fireworks, as mentioned in prior meetings, right now are scheduled for July 3rd, rain date of July 5th. The next Parks and Rec meeting will be on June 12th at Borough Hall. On the planning board side, the board met on the 22nd. We reviewed a couple HPC resolutions for 61 Park Avenue, 39 Broad Street, 46 Broad Street, and 10 New Jersey Avenue. All were approved. We had an informal discussion from Don Schumann and Robert Schuer regarding property on Park Avenue in Corcoran, which is the development of the old burlap properties and the back section of the old egg auction. So from what they were initially discussing, sounds like it could be doable for the area. So I think it's a good thing for that area to bring some investment going on. We also heard the completeness on the countryside market. Public hearing, I believe, right now is tentatively scheduled for June 26th. For that, next meeting for June 4th was canceled due to lack of agenda items, so the next planning board meeting will be on June 26th. On the police, statistics for April, we've had 4,561 miles driven. There was 435 motor vehicle summonses issued, 5 parking summonses. The mobile data terminal, which is the license plate reader, there were 14 summonses issued for that. There were 476 warnings issued, 9 criminal arrests, 67 disorderly arrests. There was between radio and telephone interfaces 1,936 minutes of time, so it's a lot. 93 investigations, 36 motor vehicle accidents, and there are 33 open investigations at this time. On the zoning official, as Councilman Harris said, did reach out to him regarding the cat problem at the Agway, getting buildings secured, because it looked like there was cats and other animals getting into those buildings, and with the people feeding the cats. So it's one thing feeding, but if we're able to get them captured, neutered, and returned so that they can't continue to keep populating. But originally it's to get the problem corrected over there. On the property maintenance front, we received notification that Peter Turpak is looking to retire from the borough towards the end of June. Peter has worked for the borough since 1965 and will be deeply missed. We wish him well as he fully enters retirement. We'll start to look for a replacement for that individual. Also participated in the parade and attended the ceremony at the monument. And for those who did attend, when you really listen to the words of the people who are out there who gave their life for what we have today, it was some pretty touching speeches that were given. There was some good music from the bands and from the harmonizers. Attended the Saturday event at the filling station. I heard Fridays was jam-packed, and Saturdays had a nice crowd. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Mark. John?
Okay, we did discuss the streetscape plans privately. We did not get together for a regular meeting. We had a cancellation due to an emergency situation, so we have to reschedule this down the road here next week. So we did not attend the reception with the recreation meeting due to the fact that we also had a council meeting the same night. So Mark and I were not allowed, to go there, so we didn't have a quorum. It's one of the reasons we didn't meet. But the fireworks are still on the 3rd. It's scheduled for the 3rd of July. It's unless rain, it'll be the 5th. And we're now into watering the street plants. You'll see this now, they've been planted. Maybe you're going to mention that, I don't know. Sorry. We're now, DPW is now into that, and that takes up some time. But we're also doing a lot of shrub, branches, etc., pickup and all that. I just want to mention that it seems like folks in Flemington have kind of decided anything they want to bring to the curb, they now have to do. And you really shouldn't be doing that. And I don't want to get into sending out letters and all that. When we had hurricanes and big trees came down and all that, we were reimbursed and got extra help and money to help do something this way. But it seems like people are clearing out the back of their land, the back of the lots, and just hauling everything to the curb. The town cannot continue to do this with 3 or 4 guys. You've got to get your own, you're going to take a tree down in your backyard, get someone in there, chip it up and cut it up and pay for it. I mean, this is not right to have throwing this on everybody else to do this stuff. And I don't want to get into where we're going to have to do something, right, or send something to everybody and get a little hard-nosed about it. I guess the only way to explain it. But these guys are overwhelmed by things, and they said there's a lot of people, some new people moved into town, and older people didn't clean up maybe what they should have, and they're now doing it, and it's causing a lot of extra time and money that it turns into overtime after a while for us, and nobody seems to even realize that but us. So anyway, and then I just want to also mention, I was going to mention Pete Turpak. Sorry to see him go. He was the police chief here for a long time and on maintenance, and I think we're going to miss him, and I wish him luck in his, I think he's going to really retire this time. It'll be his second retirement, I think. And also we've been working on the Highland and Emery plans to go out to bid real soon here, so we can maybe get that project going this summer and get it done before winter.
Good.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, John. Susan?
As John mentioned, the planters have been filled. We have lots of beautiful, what look like mostly pink flowers out there. And I did notice by each container there was another smaller pot. And I was really perplexed, and I'm like, oh, because a lot of the public sometimes uses the flowers as trash cans. Now they're putting little trash cans by each flower pot. But then today, I saw DPW was out actually collecting all the pots. So obviously, they were in the planters when they put the new planters in. And, I would have thought that the potting shed would have just taken those with them when they put the new plants in, but they didn't. But anyway, they're really lush and full, and they look quite lovely. And I'm going to see if I can get some help from DPW when they're not busy, which I guess is never, to help me move some of them closer to some of the doorways to the businesses, just to give it a little interest, because they are kind of lined up straight, and there's a lot of them, as you all know. I did drive out to Potting Shed on Sunday, thinking that I could talk to someone there, and they were closed, unfortunately. But it's quite a large, it looks like a gorgeous establishment. So I will be going back there to talk to them about plans going forward. The Samuel Fleming House, I just want to remind you all that they do have a free yoga class on Tuesday evenings from 6 to 7 p.m. And I'd like to thank our DPW for always making sure the grass is a reasonable height there. Let's see. HPC is kind of taking a breather right now. We've got several board members that are traveling and are out of the country or out of the state. And that's it.
Thanks, Susan. Brooke?
Thank you. I also attended the Memorial Day Parade. It's always a very moving event for a number of reasons. It's always nice to be reminded that we live in a small town with a small community, and it's very, very moving to see the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts marching. And it's just always very special and touching and monument to see all of our local vets who served, honoring their fallen brethren and sisters. So it's always one of my favorite, most meaningful borough events of the year. had over 720 people visit. It's estimated that 141 meals were delivered from local restaurants, so it was quite a good showing. The car show on Saturday was packed, just tons of people walking around downtown. That's exactly what we want to see happen. Coming up on June 2nd, the band has two-step at Stangle Stage. June 3rd, the following day, has a fine arts show also at Stangle Stage. I encourage you to go to the Explore Flemington website and look at their whole calendar of summer events, because it's very impressive. And also coming up June 9th is Half Hundredin. There's a BFF kickoff meeting on May 19th. We were able to attract 15 new members to that program, with the goal of 25 by the end of the season. We worked with Tim Vivo from Main Street Manor and Mike Campion. We chose spots for the Adirondack chairs that are going to be going around town, that were painted and made by Hunterdon County Polytechnic students, so that was a very good partnership. I also wanted congratulate Pete Turcotte on his retirement. He has been here forever in a lot of different capacities. He started working here in 1964, I believe, which was before I was born, and he's choosing to retire here. So it's really nice to see somebody who was born and raised and worked here and staying here. I do also want to mention the Hold On to Delight event. It was sponsored by Safe Harbor Child Access. It's a project that grew out of the suicide that occurred at Hunterdon Central. I'm on the board of Safe Harbor, and it started off as just a group of maybe 2 or 3 students that would come after school to sit and heal and talk about their grief. And from 2 or 3 students sitting down and talking about this mental health issue grew into this event that was so packed that I was really afraid the fire marshal was going to come and shut it down, because you could not get into the building. It was just a really wonderful outpouring of support for our young people in our community. So I think that was wonderful. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Brooke. This is working now, I think. All right, so we come to our first public comment session. If you have a question or comment, please state your name and address, and everyone has 3 minutes. And so, we'll go first. Who wants to go first? Okay. Community Ryan, Borough Township.
Good evening. Lou Reiner, 445 State Highway 12, Flemington, New Jersey. There's been something on my mind for a while. I always wanted to bring before the Borough Council's attention. Just to be clear, I'm speaking as a Raritan Township committee man, but I am not speaking as the governing body as an entity. I want to make that very clear. As liaison to the Department of Public Works, I personally am very much in favor of perhaps getting, I guess the best way to describe it is a more robust shared services arrangement with the township and the borough pertaining to the Department of Public Works. Our Department of Public Works and your DPW. And again, I enunciate very clearly shared services, not a merger. I think it would benefit both towns, considering budgetary constraints that, as you well know, we both have, and that we have to accommodate the best way we know how. But like I say, I would coin it along the lines as a more robust shared services arrangement with the 2 communities' DPW departments. I think it could be very beneficial to both towns. And again, I'm not speaking on behalf of my colleagues, but I would certainly encourage you to reach out to them and speak to them as well. I have to say they're very reasonable people, and I am certainly open to dialogue on this question. Okay? Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for this session? Okay. Lois Stewart.
Lois Stewart, 26 Brick Street, Flemington. Mayor Reiner, I read online comments by Lee Roth regarding the redevelopment agreement for the proposed project here on Main Street. Street. His conclusion was that that agreement was not in the best interest of the taxpayers of this borough. And I was wondering what your comments are to that review of that.
Well, I have a few comments. First of all, the majority, in fact, I believe the council unanimously felt like it was a good agreement when they voted on it last year. Did you vote on it? I think you did. I think everyone did. My second comment is that the individual items that were in that article are items that have, for the most part, if not entirely been addressed previously, which leads to the question of was there some motivation why this was published a week and a half before an election? Frankly, that was my reaction. It seemed like bringing up items we've already discussed right before an election, it just seemed like sort of a, I don't know, political play in a way.
Are you saying that all the items that were raised have been addressed?
I think they have. I didn't see anything, and I didn't go back through meeting minutes, but I didn't see anything in there that I didn't think we have already been asked or talked about. That was my reaction.
Okay, I wanted to know, John, are the disapproval of the trees for the Main Street project, is that going to be appealed to SHPO? Because trees have much more health and well-being benefits than just seeing a building. And so I'm hoping that our environmental commission and the committee that worked on the streetscape thing are going to bring to SHPO's attention that trees are necessary for the health and well-being of the community residents.
Well, the last time we met, there was the comment that was brought up about the trees on the streetscape. Since then, we have not had a meeting, as I mentioned earlier tonight, that was canceled due to an emergency situation. So we have not really sat down and talked about it, but we certainly were going to talk about the trees, what was approved, where, can they be changed, or should we change them, and should we move forward to SHPO or not? We have not gotten that far because the meeting was canceled last week, and we haven't rescheduled it yet.
When will that meeting be?
I don't know.
Will it be open to members of the public?
I don't know. How do we do that?
No, the streetscape committee has been meeting by itself.
How will the public know?
Okay. We're going to move on. Does anyone else have a question or comment? Robert Short.
Short, 47 Broad Street. I'm concerned about this eminent domain issue, that I think it's something that the community has voiced their opposition to. And while I recognize the necessity of it, especially if the Friends of Historic Flemington aren't going to come to the table and start negotiating reasonably. And what I mean by that is that the master plan that they are clamoring for, in my opinion, is not really applicable to this property, because the master plan is designed for the parcels that were there, which is going to change. You have an amalgamation of all the properties, and that in itself would really justify putting a different use on that property, which would be much more bigger and better use, and make it a better asset for this community than what the master plan would have provided. So I feel that that point needs to be made then, along with the fact that if you choose, this council, and I think the support of eminent domain in this council from what we saw earlier this year is there, that eminent domain is a distinct possibility. And once you rule on it, that's it. It's a game changer, a game goes. Mr. Beckerman can opine on this point, but that means that the project as it's been proposed can move forward immediately, even while evaluation of the eminent domain property goes on. It immediately jumpstarts this project, which I hope we don't get there, because it's not going to be a good thing for our community as it is. I agree with, Lois, I don't agree with your statement that everything has been addressed. Lee Walk made some very good points in that article, and I believe that, yes, they were discussed, but those points were not heeded, and there were not changes made in the agreement to address them, and as a result, the community gets the short end of the stick. So I'm hoping in the negotiations that all those points get readdressed to the satisfaction of your constituents.
Okay. I do need to clarify one thing. Eminent domain, the discussions that have been held about it, or comments that have been made about it, are not related to the discussions about resolving the legal roadblocks with the historic group. Those are two different and almost unrelated items. Under the redeveloper agreement, the developer is to acquire the properties, and eminent domain, if it were to be used, would apply only to the property acquisition. It does not refer to what the eventual project looks like. It only refers to acquiring properties. And when Mr. Beckelman said it jumpstarts the process, the only process that jumpstarts is the eminent domain itself. It does not jumpstart anything else about the project. It's only a property acquisition matter. All right, Chris Engelhardt, you have a question or comment?
2 weeks ago, I asked you about what assets the redevelopment LLC has, and you said that you looked into that. What assets do they have?
Oh, I believe I've looked into this and answered this many, many, many times for you, Chris. So we don't need to keep going through that. All right, really, you keep asking, and I'm sorry, but
I have a question then.
yes.
It says in the agreement that the redevelopment LLC has the liquor license. Do they or do they not? Is it under their name, the registration? Or
I did note that. I don't know whether it's under the name of the LLC or the developer. Pardon me?
Can somebody look it up and see what the registration says?
Sure. But I don't know. No, I don't.
I understand that it's not the redevelopment one, that it's under another LLC name. And in the agreement it says that they own it, but I understand it's something different.
Okay.
So that needs to be resolved one way or another, because.
Well, we'll just look up who owns it and we'll let you know.
Pardon me?
We'll just look up who owns it and we'll let you know.
And when will you tell us?
Sure, we'll tell you.
Call me tomorrow?
No, but we'll let you know.
Well, that's, you give me a date,
At the next council meeting, I'll be happy to report it.
say who owns the liquor license.
Yeah. Or if you want to call Borough Hall, they can look it up for you.
Pardon me?
Or if you would like to call Sally at Borough Hall, she could look it up for you and tell you.
Well, I have, and it's under another name.
Well,
So
then
it's
you
not
know
what
the
the
answer.
agreement says.
Okay.
It's a different LLC.
Okay.
So that needs to be transferred.
Your point's noted. Okay.
And that happens shortly?
I don't know, Chris. I don't know. We'll take a look at it.
Well, at this point, it's not an asset of the redevelopment.
Your point is noted, Chris. We'll look at it. What else to say?
That could be sold because it's a separate LLC and then we have nothing.
The redeveloper agreement says that the developer must provide a minimum of one liquor license in the project. It can provide more than one, but he has to provide one, at least one, which could come from a hotel or it could come from this one.
Yes, it is an obligation under the agreement, so if they're holding it under a different entity, they're still bound to ultimately transfer that license or if there's a new license.
Unless
for
it's
use.
sold to somebody else before.
Then they would be in violation of the agreement. They have to provide it. So it could be held in another name currently, but they ultimately have to provide that to the
What
project.
keeps them from selling it to another entity?
If they were able to get a license through the other means, they may be have to provide at least one liquor license for this project. If they cannot, through other means, acquire a license, they are
So if
obligated.
they sell it to somebody else,
They would provide us.
then we have no agreement.
No, the agreement says they must provide a liquor license, either this one or another one. Is there, we need to move on, Chris. The time is up on that
Since they
one.
already have it in there.
Is there another question
They
or
don't
comment?
have it
Is
in
it
there.
Hope? Miller? Okay, Hope Miller?
Other limited to 3 minutes.
Yes.
The second thing, I've only lived here for about 30 years. My husband has been here probably 6 generations, like my brothers. We are in support of the redevelopment of Flemington Borough. And I think we need to get more people at these meetings, which I intend to do the second I leave here, to come and speak for what's good for the whole, for the town. Memorial Day picnic or party was, parade was great. The thing on Main Street is wonderful. But there's nothing else to do. We need to bring business here. We need to make this town strong. When his grandparents were here, Main Street was busy. It was lined with businesses. There were places to go and things to do. There's not here. And if we have the opportunity to sit down and stop wasting time on asking the same question that's already been asked apparently 3 times and answered, it's a waste of all of our time. And this is the first time I've come to a meeting in a long time, and I'm very disappointed in how some of it's going. And I think we need to get together and come up with a plan that's good for this town. And it seems like we have one.
One speaker, please. Okay.
It
Thank
seems
you.
like we have one. Let's do something about it.
All right. Bob Benjamin?
I'm property on Spring Street, Bloomfield Avenue. This is going to have to accommodate the condition on the sale for the need, have the need to use hotel. We now have Mr. Cut, you go with anybody in this room, 5 to use a hotel, it's in right now, without approval from the town. Common sense. Don't have to figure that. We now have Mr. Romanov holding up the project, from what I understand, Mr. Cutts not going from the planning board, unless he has either a contract with consent or property on to the redevelopment. If Mr. Romanov sees what he's doing, holding out. He's doing holding out on the nerve. But nothing is going to be done in the meantime. Can we say something to this man? Say, can we fix up to this? Can you do something about it? Why should we have to live in this borough, work in this borough, have a building like that right in the center of our nation? We have a beautiful parade, beautiful parade. People are walking by and still, we can't miss it. If he's not going to do anything, Mr. Cut, put windows in, paint it, do something for the good of the town.
Thank you. Al Brewer?
Yes, Al Brewer, Compromise Village, Flemington, Mayor, Council, all. I just wanted to follow up with Council and Mayor. A number of months ago, the developer's attorney submitted a request group for eminent domain. There are a number of properties listed in that request. And my question to the council site is, since you got served with that letter and addressed it and hopefully addressed it, how many properties are closed or under contract since that letter has been submitted? How many properties have been purchased by Flemington or individual and what state your knowledge? Since that question.
None of the properties have been purchased as of now, which is very common in a project like this, by the way.
And the redevelopment agreement itself has been in existence for how long?
Since December. There was an earlier version, but the current version was since December.
And to your knowledge, do you believe that if any building or any purchase will all be purchased on contingencies based on what either the planning board does or the council or the body does in terms of seeking approval? Is it going to be a condition? Is that what housing works for all properties, not only municipal houses?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that last sentence. Say again, please.
Well, the question is whether or not, to your knowledge, whether or not all those properties listed in that request for eminent domain, all the subject properties are going to be conditioned. Do you believe they're going to be conditioned and contingent upon subsequent approval by the planning board and the town. So,
I don't know exactly what arrangements the developer will work on those. I know what the current thinking is, but where it might go in the future.
so the point being is that when you have, and I understand the reasons for it, and this is reasons for doing that, but that can extend the process of getting something done, not sooner but later, as you go through and work through that process. Because there are a number of people in the development area who might object and hold out and not negotiate. And we could be here a year, 2 years from now, still talking about the same thing. And see if we can find it.
Okay.
I'd like to see if there are ways to work on that issue so that we can know that something's going to be done sooner or later. Just a question.
Okay. Okay. We are working on all fronts to try to resolve the roadblocks that are left. I can say we are far enough along in the local approval process. You can see the finish line from here. That doesn't mean there aren't some obstacles in the way, but were they resolved, it was very, very close to the end here. Okay, any others for this first session? Tony Pratt.
Tony Pratt, 45 North Main Street. I appreciate Mr. Reiner's comment, I don't know if he left, about the shared services. It makes so much sense. They're a large township. They have the equipment. Mr. Gorman was, initially saying about, being overwhelmed here with some of the storm stuff. I personally, in the middle of some of this, said it would be great if we could have an area where we could come and place the stuff. Instead of the borough doing it, just lay it in a central location and then go with, that. It could save labor, it could save time. Me personally, I have a vehicle which I could get it over there. Raritan Township down by the river has a large complex. They have huge dumpsters where, I'm sure they do invite maybe borough residents to go down there and, they have separation containers. But it's a no-brainer, okay? They surround us, okay? They're large. They're just asking, hey, we're all in this together. Disaster or everyday municipal, stuff we have. It makes perfect sense. Is it a prelude to a political merger? Well, that's another question. I'm going to ask everybody here to not politicize this situation with this hotel. We have a developer, we've had developers, we have, a person that may want to sell it. It's a private deal. Our government here is overseeing it. But please, campaign flyers, comments on Facebook, don't politicize it. We've got enough troubles in Washington, D.C. without something local going on. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I appreciate what the council does. I appreciate the comments of the preservationists as far as what are we going to do with this jewel. Mr. Benjamin here just reiterated what other people said. It's been years since that place closed down. And nobody in this room, no group, nobody has come to the rescue and just trying to, keep it dressed up a little bit. So we're here. It's an enigma right now. But I think the worst thing you can do now is politicize it. Let the process go forward, and let's see what's going to occur across the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone who has not spoken yet in this session? Okay, thank you. We'll have a second session, and if people have second comments, we'll be happy to hear them at that session. All right, we'll move on then to the approval of the minutes. We have a motion, please, to approve the minutes from the May 14th, that's May 14th, 2018 regular council meeting.
Next motion.
Second. Okay, that's Michael and Mark. Roll call, please.
Mr. Iver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Yes. Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Okay, can we have a motion then to approve the minutes from the executive session of the May 14th, 2018 meeting? So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mark and Michael, roll call.
Mr. Iver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Yes. Ms. Warden?
Thank you. We have 4 items on our consent agenda. If there is no reason to call any of them out, seeing none, can we have a motion then to adopt the consent agenda?
Let's move to second these. consent.
Okay, John and Michael, call the roll, please.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, moving to our regular agenda then. The first item is Resolution 2018-94, approving revisions to the Personnel Manual for the Borough of Flemington. One of the revisions on here are that there were two functions. One is human resources, and the other is simply coordinating with the mayor on emergency building functions that are the personnel manual has them as being the person who's the utilities clerk. They should move back to the borough clerk. And if you recall, Ms. Sally is the borough clerk as of November, and we're doing the HR move under advice of our attorney that we should do it. So, can we have a motion to introduce a motion for this resolution, please?
Make a motion.
Second, that's Michael and John. Is there any council discussion on this? Okay, call the roll, please, Sally.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now we come to the budget. All right, the agenda says Resolution 2018-88, second reading, introducing amendments to the municipal budget totaling a net reduction of $18,600. Okay, here's what we're going to do. As many of you recall, we had the original budget up for adoption, a couple of meetings back. I don't remember exactly, May 14th, I guess it was. No, it was before that. Anyhow, it was voted down 3-2. We only had 5 people here on council. So we had a 7th budget workshop on May 8th with the full council and I there. And several changes were introduced or suggested and verbally agreed upon that reduced the budget by, it's a $5.5 million budget, reduced it by $18,600. So instead of a 1.94% increase, the budget is now a 1.6% increase. That's a 0.34% reduction. And so on an average borough household, instead of a $72.07 increase, they will now see only a $61.20 increase. So that's a savings to the average household of $10.87 a year. Now, there were 7 categories that changed. I read them all off at the last meeting. They are mayor and council other expense, admin other expense, tax assessor other expense, tax collector other expense, fire marshal salary and wages, police other expense, and telephone. So under the rules of introducing budgets, we have already held a public hearing on the general budget, so we are not holding another public hearing on the general budget tonight. We are, however, holding a public hearing on these 7 items in case there are any questions or comments from the public just about these 7 items. But again, it is not a general Q&A or comment on the whole budget. So, that means now we come to the public hearing on those 7 items. Can we have a motion, please, to open that public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's Mark and Michael. Call a roll to open the public hearing, please.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Ward?
Yes.
Okay, public hearing is now open. If there are any questions or comments about those 7 categories and the changes to them, now's the time. Oh, Stuart?
Stuart, 26 Spring Street, exactly what items are covered
It was a reduction in training aids and conferences. That's per our CFO, Bill Hans. Bill, just so people on the video can hear you, and you're front and center on budget, so if you would, please, come on up.
So we have $11,300 in the proposed budget to cover conferences and meetings.
It's not just that. They have other things. I think the website is in there. I think $5,000 or something like that is for the website. Posting of the website and maintaining it. So there's other items.
For those watching, there's a $2,300 reduction in that line item, which is a 6% reduction. Do you have any other questions, Lo?
And what was the final resolution? I can see there's a $5,000 reduction in the fire safety and housing enforcement, but what was the final resolution of that whole discussion about the fire person and his assistant? How did that work out?
The fire official in the initial budget discussions had described to the council his reasoning for needing some more money this year, probably not on a permanent going forward basis, but to do some inspections and some education to get everything to where he felt it needed to be. So he proposed a rather significant budget increase. And in the so when we held this last budget workshop, going into the workshop, council members Harris, Peterson, and Driver had initially proposed a $10,000 reduction, and the outcome of that night's discussion was a $5,000 reduction. So there will be some increase in the fire official's salary and wage, but it won't be quite as much as originally proposed.
And what happened about the assistant? Because there was a lot of discussion about the hours of the assistant.
Well, it was all salary and wages. This particular line, the assistant is paid. Well, let me ask you, it's the same line item, isn't it? The assistant, yeah, it's a different rate, right? The assistant and the fire official are both paid out of the same line item. So this doesn't specify exactly who is making changes to their schedule. It could be either one of them because it comes out of the same line item.
And is that up to the fire safety official?
Yes.
How much he gets and how much the assistant gets?
Yes, it's his department, so he oversees that, yes.
Actually, if I may, there's one who proposes. We were looking at fire official. I believe he was looking at an increase of hours. I believe it was 25% for his assistant. And it may be more than one person, but for his assistant, he was looking for an increase of 140%. After discussion, first when we represented that, and also when we discussed this, when we spoke to removing the increase for the assistant, but keeping the increase for the fire official. At that point, the fire official could make the determination, does he want to use the 25% additional he had and apply that to the assistant or not. Through discussion, we looked at a number of different options. At this point, I think it's relevant to say, again, those who are interested to go back to the video of this. At this point, we were looking at a number of different options for cutting. One of them was legal. We spoke at one point that other members of this council proposed making a cut to legal at that time. Ultimately, there was an agreement that we would cut $5,000 from this. There was discussion about was it safety or was this an education component. This was an added education component.
All right. Okay. As with all budget discussions, you try to get most of what you want. Not everybody gets exactly everything they want, and so it was. Okay, are there any other questions or comments on this? Robert Shore?
So, I attended the meeting briefly, and I'll reiterate what I said then. I don't think we've gone far enough. While I recognize that there are cuts here, I also know that the increasing tax burden on us, the residents, because of the decline in the asset value of the commercial properties, it becomes a lot more burdensome. I think that we DPW, so they're the ones that got it, cut them by the amount of increase of their taxes. So let them pay for this, not the community. And I think you're really doing a disservice to us by not heeding that bit of advice. I don't think it's going far.
Any other comments? Al Brewer?
Yes, Mayor, after one compromise village, my recollection when I attended that meeting, the budget meeting, was that what necessitated the increase in the request by the fire marshal and his assistant was really a backlog of things that were done according to specs and his opinion. If you go back to the page and review that, and that's my recollection, I think it's accurate, and I'm not misrepresenting what he said. And then there was some subsequent conversation about whether he truly needed 10,000 or five, and how much of that will go towards his assistant, and some subsequent conversation that really focused on whether or not he should be taking part of his increase and telling about his assistant and another subcontractor in order to do inspections that may or may not have been able to do. Now, I don't know what the situation was, but I got a sense from attending that meeting that there was a lack of oversight by somebody along the way that resulted in more responsibilities that this fire marshal had when he came in. You had to paperwork, cross the T's, dot the I's, get all the necessary inspections done that would require by statute and by law. And my question today really, and my point is, I believe that we all agree that we need to fund, our staff and our workers, the fire marshal, our police, everyone to do their jobs. But at the same time, there's got to be some responsibility taken by people who oversee these various departments so that these situations don't come back and rear their head at subsequent council. So that's my point, my observation. And I would just ask whoever's in charge of that department at this point in time, we don't have a reoccurrence of something not being done because it wasn't done. That's just my observation. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about these 7 items? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to close public hearing. So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mark and Betsy, call the roll to close the public hearing.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Okay. I will add at one council member's request that since all this started about redoing the budget, an additional item did present itself for another possible $5,000 savings. However, we were advised by our CFO that that would require postponing the entire budget again. And I think everyone graciously agreed that for $5,000 we should move on. So we appreciate that, but just so everyone knows who was there.
Yes, I did. Thank you for checking.
Thank you. Okay. And okay. All right. So that brings us then to the point of introducing our budget. Correct, Mr. Hans? We're there. We're adopting the budget now.
This is the second reading, so.
Yes, this is the second reading. We've had the public hearing on those items. So we are now at the point of introducing a motion and a second to adopt the budget. We have a motion to adopt the budget, please.
I'd like to make a motion for discussion.
Okay.
For council.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that's Michael and Mark. Any further discussion among council then before we vote? Michael?
Yes, please. Bill, first off, I want to thank you for agreeing to this meeting. We had a number of options. Councilmember Hayne not available to vote that evening. The 3 votes that ultimately defeated this bill would not have otherwise defeated the bill. So the option to us was, do you want to just re-vote the budget, or do you have some suggestions? So we had suggestions, and it was very difficult for me to sit here while we were just discussing those 7 areas, because there are many other areas that were discussed as well. Again, documented in the 2-hour recording. Mr. Stewart, you brought up one point, and I was explaining that juggling of some different points. But still, I think more important than the numbers would be what is the function of the budget. And the function of the budget should be to meet objectives for the community and not just to get from one year to the next. More important than the numbers also would be transparency. So for me, I looked deeply at the legal expenditure we had, $135,000 budget line item. And I looked at social media as well, and people were saying the Friends of Historic Flemington would stop suing, and we wouldn't be bankrupt in terms of all these legal expenditures. So I looked to see how much money do we expect to spend at this point right now, and it was a lot less than I thought it would be. Talking around $18,000 or less in total. The question is, what do we do from there? It would seem to me then that we're past this period of litigation and we're going to move on, and maybe we don't need such a large legal budget. And there was discussion here at council. So here we are, 2.5 years into this project. We're still discussing the legal aspects. My colleague, Susan Peterson, at the other end of the table, when she was council member-elect, said, let's give it 1 year and say we're done with this. And we were told too much time to pass. We can't do this. So in the interest of time, I've made a brief list of some of the concerns that I have that I think are not represented by the numbers, but certainly are going to drive the numbers of our budget. And that is, I looked at the budget in terms of what was not there. I did not see the police department, the sailor with 90 to 100 Main Street on the budget. And last year, there was discussion that at this point, we'd have shovels in the ground. So I expect that we would have a plan regarding our police department. At this point, no sale price has been disclosed. And some of you who are sitting right now in this courtroom have asked for that previously. No new location for our police has been discussed. We're a small borough. There aren't that many locations. No cost for this relocation has been discussed. And you can say, well, at this point, we don't think it's going to happen this calendar year. But you can still put it in a budget so you can see it on the horizon, so you can plan for what your expenditures will be for the coming years. We put a lot into the capital budget, which extends payments out into the future. Things that are put into the capital budget, or we expect to be in the capital budget, that we do not expect to spend or start this year, don't appear in the budget until next year. So, I made issue regarding the water tower last year, and whether or not that would appear in the budget. $4.5 million bond, initially introduced for 30 years. Then when it was approved by council, it was decreased down to 20 years. At the time it was approved, it's bonding, so we heard it twice. At the time it was approved, we were told it was critical, imminent failure as of September last year. And the question when people were cornered and asked, is it going to fail? The answer was, well, we're going to take care of it, so it's not a problem. Well, because we delayed responding to that, once we got into this year, because we might not start on that project until this year, and we're bonding a year out, it's not in the budget. And what does this mean? If we get the money for free, if we don't pay anything to pay off that bond, if it's 0% interest, we'll keep it simple, it's $235,000 that the borough will pay annually. And the beauty of that is, it's not a tax. Your taxes don't go up. Your utility bills go up. So with the water tower, this is not to be confused with infrastructure for a new development. That's what the mayor and council said. And I'm not going to discuss that point now. Water and sewer continues to run at a significant shortfall in this community. How do we pay that? Well, we draw money out of the surplus. You know, 10% surplus. $500,000, more or less, 10%. And that's great. It's a good thing we have that surplus, because as we run the shortfall with water and sewer, we have to draw from there. Now we have to build it back up. Well, I thought, wouldn't this be an excellent source to cut? Doesn't affect anyone, it's a surplus. You can't cut it because we're using it to pay for water and sewer that we're not currently collecting enough money on. We had a 9% increase last July, expected increase this July. And when the water tower was put in place, when we finally decide that this is critical, we have to take care of it again, $235,000 annual that will need to be paid for by ratepayers. Otherwise, we have to continue to pay that out of the surplus.
Mike, we're talking about adopting our budget.
Right, but these were all discussions regarding the budget. And these were all things that could be put into the budget. You know, at least to me, when I look at the police department, for example, if we're not looking at what the cost will be, relocation, location, you know, Mr. Mayor, I've got to ask, are you considering disbanding our police department or otherwise merging it with the township? I don't know. And the fact that we can go this long without these answers, this all falls under the heading of transparency. So we've created a functional budget, and we've talked about the process, but I would be remiss not to talk about what wasn't in the budget and what was discussed in that 7th meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have spent about $57,000 on legal bills for the project. That question has been asked and answered repeatedly in council meetings, so if anyone was surprised at the amount, perhaps they just didn't hear the questions and answers. We've covered it many times. Is there any other discussion about this budget?
Yeah, I have a very brief comment.
Sure.
And again, Mayor, I'd like to thank you for that opportunity for that additional meeting. I do think it was helpful for us to go back and take a look. Sometimes, you know, going back and looking one more time and uncovers some areas that maybe you missed to begin with. Well, the budget's not perfect. I believe we did work really hard to find cuts where we could. And even though they weren't as large as we may have hoped for and wanted. However, I'm warning going forward, I'm hopeful that in the coming months we can find additional ways to save borough taxpayers additional money. And that has to do with day-to-day expenses. Some of those areas could be using voice over IP for the phone lines. I know that the county just announced that they are moving to a voice over IP system that will pay for itself in very quick time with a minimal amount of investment that will save the county taxpayers a couple $100,000 a year. And I believe that while we would never be able to save that much because we don't have the phone lines, we can look at some of these day-to-day expenses. We can look at the commissions paid on property and casualty insurance services. We could look at installing solar on some of the buildings. Yes, there would be an initial outlay of some bonding money to put those panels up, but in the long run it could save us money. I know that as a consumer of solar energy. And we need to be exploring how to cut these expenses now rather than waiting until we get together for budget meetings next year. And we're again going to have more issues with more of the increases from the current police and Teamsters contract that will be going into effect next year. There will be additional increases. And again, we're going to have to find a way to pay for those outsized raises given last year. I also think we need to take a closer look at what we're paying for legal bills and other professional services. And, you know, ultimately, just because we have always done something one way, it does not preclude us from evolving into a better and more affordable way of doing business that can ultimately save the borough taxpayers money.
Thank you. Any other comments about this budget? Susan?
I have some. You know, I look at everything from a business standpoint, and it was really wonderful to adjust the operational budget, the fixed, as well as some of the variable costs. But I really do agree with Councilman Harris that we are ignoring some of the goal-related projects, and especially those in this redevelopment plan. If we are close to the end game, which I just heard, this then to me, moving the police department should be an objective. There need to be dollars budgeted for that. The cost of implementing the goals that are part of our ultimate vision for this town I also believe need to be part of the annual budget. Otherwise, I am really nervous and petrified of being blindsided next year or sooner. That's it.
Any other discussion about the budget? Okay. Let me say as a general comment here that some of the things that have been brought up here are capital issues, and when they come up for discussion, council can consider whether or not to pass them, such as building acquisition, things like that. And when you do that, that's the time when you look at the impact on the debt service. Debt service is an operating line, and it's a byproduct of the capital items that you pass. So they do not belong in a budget discussion for this year if they're not going to be in this year. There is a time lag, and when you look at your capital budget, that is a time, if you have a question, to bring up particular questions that you have. And I would say, if you have a question that you feel is not addressed, I would ask you, did you consider addressing it when you were in all these meetings? If not, then perhaps next year or during the rest of this year, feel free to bring up your concerns. Likewise, if you have a particular topic where you see that we could reduce an expense by making a change here and there, I think it's a wonderful idea, and please go ahead and propose it, and everyone will be happy to see it.
Mr. Mayor, I need to clarify, man. You apparently do not recall at the second budget meeting that we had, when the question was made regarding capital expenditure, and if it could be included in the budget, if it could be noted on the budget for future reference. And that question was given, and the CFO said that we could include it in the budget for reference for the next year.
Yes, you can. Yes, you certainly can. Okay. Is there any further discussion before we vote on the budget? Okay. Sally, call the roll. Let's see. We did close the public hearing, right?
Yes.
Yes, we did. We're doing council discussion. Okay, please call the roll then to adopt the 2018 budget.
I'm sorry. Mr. Harrison moved and Mr. King seconded the motion to adopt the budget. So
Yes.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
No.
Ms. Peterson?
No.
Ms. Warden? Yes.
Okay. That concludes the budget. Thank you. All right, so moving on. Ordinance 2018-3. This is a second reading on the Fire Prevention Code Index, Section 8-15, the amount of fees. Mark, you want to take this one?
Yes, this second reading of this ordinance is to raise the fees for the inspection of fires so that it meets the fees that are charged by the state. We have not raised the fees in the department for a couple of years, so fees are moving on a mercantile business from $40 to $52 for the first 1,000 feet, and then $5,000 or $10 for each additional 1,000 feet. It was 5, it's going to 10. And then factories, warehouses, the old fee was 40, it's moving to 52 for the first 1,000 feet. 1,001 to 3,500 is moving from 50 to 65. 3,501 to 6,000 square feet, 60 to $78. 6,000 to 11,999, 70 to 90, and then anything 12,000 feet over would be a flat fee of $200. Like I said, these fees match with what the department has set up, that the incoming fees fund the operation of that department. So with that, I will move ordinance for, or we have to open it.
This is a, yes, I need a motion then to open the public hearing.
I move to open a,
Okay.
Second.
Okay, that's Mark and Michael. Call the roll to open the public hearing, please.
Mr. Ever?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. The public hearing is open for questions or comments about this ordinance. Are there any? Robert Shore.
So the state limits are.
Excuse me, Robert, could you stand up so that we
Right, see you, John. The statute limits are the maximum, am I correct? Am I assuming that?
What the current fee is, what the state charges, correct?
There's no requirement to raise them, it's just that you're going as high as the state would permit.
Correct. The fees for this year, most of the businesses have sent out, and they've already been sent out, so they would be the old fees. Any new business coming into town would start utilizing the newer set fees.
Do any of you know how much revenue this is going to generate? And do you know what the expense of that department is? And do the revenues cover the expenses?
Currently, that department is self-sufficient. The salary does come out of the budget, which I believe has to be that way for the code. All the operational, the vehicle maintenance, the supplies come out of the fees that are associated with that. Is that correct, Bill? The fire marshal, the fees that's recovered?
Yes, when we asked the fire official, we asked him to show us how the revenues would match up with the expenses in this scenario. In fact, we did
And
with
salary?
Pardon me?
The expenses inclusive of the
Yes.
salary?
Yes.
So we are making money with the revenue.
Well, we're covering our expenses. We're not making profit, but we cover the expense. You're not allowed to just continually build up a profit, on and on and on.
Okay, I understand.
So, okay.
So the question is, are we bringing in more revenue than it's costing us in salary and expenses to run the department?
It was very close. It's very slightly more, I think, for just a little cushion.
Okay.
Yes.
So this increase would make it so that instead of it being slightly more, it would be much more.
No. With the increase, it would balance.
Oh, okay. So
With the increase.
are you saying last year we were in a deficit in this department?
No, the fire official advised that the state raised the rates, so we have to pay more rates. So we have to pay a higher amount to the state.
Okay.
So we have to increase what we're taking in.
Do you know how much the state is charging us? How much more in percentage? And what was the increase in
Not on a line by line. I don't have that available here. We did look at that. That was part of the analysis, was to see what it would take to cover.
Are we increasing exceeding the amount the state is, increasing it?
It was to balance it.
To keep it balanced.
Are there any other questions or comments? Lois Stewart.
Lois Stewart, 26 Spring Street. I just want a clarification. This is only on commercial and business properties? It doesn't affect residential properties?
I'm pretty sure this is just commercial. I think the residential was addressed last year.
Yeah, this is.
While you look that up, can I just say thanks to Ken McCormick, our fire marshal. When we met with us back in February, and this recommendation was made, he immediately put together the figures, and this this ordinance was drafted at that time.
And it is just business, commercial. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's Mark and Michael. Call the roll to close the public hearing, please.
Mr. Ever?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any further council discussion on this? Okay, call a roll to adopt the ordinance.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Norman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Yes. Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The next item is ordinance 2018-7. This is a second reading. This was tabled from the last meeting. This is the one that would amend Chapter 4, licensing, which would eliminate Section 4-7, which was the regulation of automatic amusement devices. And Brooke, you were going to do a little homework on that, and you have some information for us on that.
Yeah, I did look into it. I mean, this is a pretty common permit found throughout the country. It looks like it was started just to make sure that people didn't have criminal records, that they weren't using pinball machines to gamble or something like that. So that's why these permits came into being. So I don't see really a problem with having or keeping this permit requirement around for any reason. However, the fee of $1,000 per device is just exponentially higher than any other municipality in New Jersey. So, listen, we're a small enough town that the need for regulating pinball machines isn't really that necessary. I would agree. But however, having looked into it, if it was something that we did want to require a permit, we wanted to cover somebody's costs to go out there once a year and inspect and make sure it was gambling. I mean, we could do something that, Scotch Plains has something where it's $100 for the first, they actually have $200 for the first machine, but if we did something like $100 for the first machine, $20 for each machine thereafter, that would cover the cost of our inspector's time if we thought this was important enough to have permits. Because, I mean, one thing is that we do really want to be business friendly. Arcade wants to move in here. One of the things that we always say is that we don't have stuff for our kids to go and do. So the last thing that we would ever want to do is over-regulate and overcharge something that we always say that we really want to attract. So my recommendation is that if we're going to keep it, we just charge a nominal fee to cover some time.
Okay, but you're recommending that we do keep the regulation, just significantly reduce the amount?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Is there a consensus on the council about that? If there is, we'll table it, we'll just rewrite it and bring it back.
Yeah, actually, I was going to raise that same point, that I do believe, and I did a little research too. Not that I didn't think that Councilwoman Warden was not capable of cluing us all in, but I just kind of wanted to do my own research as well. And I do believe that a nominal fee to cover the expense of somebody to go in and make sure, and although I am certain that the current proposed project is going to be a great asset, I also think that we need to be forward-looking and, what comes next, and if we have some kind of permit process in place with the nominal fee, we protect ourselves. So I would be in favor of tabling.
Okay, tabling in favor of retaining the regulation, but with significantly reduced fees.
Yeah, $1,000 is over the top. I did see some areas, I think they'd charge $50 non-refundable initial fee, and then $25 per machine, $10 to $25 per machine.
Yeah, it was really, it was all over the place. Like Westfield had $500 for the first machine, $400 for each one after. Milford was just $25 per machine. Hamilton, $100 per license, and then $50 a year. I mean, there was no rhyme or reason why they came up with this. But I mean, I did go through the ordinance. I mean, it could be just as simple as, we agree to change 4.7.4, the fee date, and in section 4.7.8, just cross out raising revenue. Where it says this license section is enacted for the purpose of raising revenues, just strike that out.
Okay.
And then just leave it as is.
All right. Would you be willing then just to propose these changes, and we'll give it another shot at a future meeting?
Do we,
In
so
other
for
words-
the next thing?
Yes.
Okay, then
All right.
I'll do that. So then I make a motion to table it.
Okay, so, yes,
Question on this
yes,
also.
sure.
Would this be considered a tax? And as a tax, would it potentially be subject to some type of initial tax abatement as we offer in the community if someone is going to make an improvement and give it a tax abatement for a certain number of years? Could this fall under that?
Well, fees, licensing fees are not taxes, but if you wanted to do that, you could write the fee, you could write it so that the fee would be collected beginning the second year or something like that, if that's what am I getting addressed?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we want to be business
Why
friendly.
don't you talk with Brooke if you would? All right. So can we have a motion then to table this until such time as we get a redrafted ordinance? Motion to table?
Motion
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, that's a motion to table by Brooke, second by Betsy. Call a roll to table this one again, please, Sally.
Mrs. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Peterson? Yes. Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Okay. So before we bring this back again, I'm sure we will check up and down the road and make sure that we have a consensus that will fly the next time. All right? Okay. And, I thought that we had that when, after the first session, so my apologies there that we did not, and we'll do it again. All right, so now we come to ordinance 2018-6, which is a first reading for the salary ordinance for 2018. There's no public hearing tonight, just being a first reading. The ordinance is in the meeting packet, and can we have a motion to introduce it on first reading?
That's so moved.
Okay, that's Michael and John. Call the roll, please, to introduce the salary ordinance.
Mrs. Driver?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Yes. Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Thank you. So we will plan then to have a second reading and a public hearing at the next meeting, which is,
Can I change a point here? It's Tuesday and not Monday, so the deadline for the ads for legal notice won't be in this Thursday's paper, it'll be the next Thursday's paper.
so that, are you saying we would not have a public hearing on June 11th?
Let me just look at the calendar real quick.
This is the one that,
Why do you do
It would
that?
be in the 7th.
Am I correct? The language would remain the same, that retroactive to January.
You tell me.
My brain is just short circuiting right now. We could get it in, I could get it added on June 7th. Okay? And then the meeting would be on the 11th. And then, 4 days, and I think it has to be longer than 4 days.
Okay.
So I think we should put.
So it looks like because today's meeting is a day later than usual, that we will have to have a public hearing then, it appears, on June 25th. If you find, let's put it this way, if you find out that it can be on June 11th,
Yeah.
we will put a notice out on the website and Facebook and let everyone know, but tentatively it looks like it will be June 25th here. Okay. So we had a motion and a second, correct? We did not vote on this one yet, so
That's correct.
call
No,
roll, please.
We all voted yes to introduce this. We already voted.
Okay, all right. Oh, that's right, we were just going to public hearing, thank you. All right, so next is ordinance 2018-9, also a first reading. This is to introduce our capital ordinance, and this is, the wording is providing various 2018 capital improvements totaling $475,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $452,379 in bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof. Again, it's a first reading, and this is these are for capital items as discussed in the budget workshop. And as are in the budget package. Can we have a motion to introduce on first reading? Okay, a second, please. Okay, that's John and Michael. So call the roll to introduce this one, please.
Mr. Ever?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Yes. Ms. Warden?
Yes.
It would also fall under the
Thank you.
same
And, yeah, we will also, it looks like it'll be June 25th for the hearing. If it's pulled up, we'll provide notice and let everyone know. Okay, next is ordinance 2018-10. It's a first reading. Am I amending the revised general ordinances? Chapter 7, traffic schedule I, no parking. What this does is we have there's a curb cutout area on Captain Street in front of the Justice Center. And it's always been used for short-term parking for vehicles that have business there in the Justice Center. The current sign says 15-minute. All it says is 15-minute parking. And someone was kind enough to bring to the attention of our police department that some vehicles stay there more than 15 minutes. Felt it was a problem. And so we are simply changing the signage to say that the parking is reserved for police and official use there at the court. That's all that this does. It doesn't change the area. So again, it's a first reading. Can we have a motion to introduce this, please? So moved. Second. Okay. I think that was Mark and Brooke this time. Call the roll, please, to introduce.
Mr. Ever?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Yes. Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Thank you. And likewise, plan for a public hearing on June 25th. So we did. We're now up to our second public comment session. 3 minutes apiece. Say, state your name and address, please, if you have questions or comments. Do we have any?
Yes.
Rob Montero.
My name is Rob Mortera. I'm the building owner of Lone Eagle, and we're proposing a food court on a brewery expansion next door. And I'm here with the two gentlemen who are going to consider doing their arcade in our new building. And we appreciate that the council has considered lowering the fees, and we appreciate it, keep them as low as possible. They're a startup company. They're planning between 40 and 45 machines, and we hope that you guys consider a sliding scale, especially for this much. Their machines are not coin operated. Some of these ordinances were only referring to coin operated machines, and just like to keep it as low as possible and encourage them to do business in Flemington. And I'm going to have Rob Case, who's one of the owners, speak.
I grew up here in town. I grew up on Captain Island, and since I was a kid, I can remember nothing to do around here. I watched a lot of my peers move away, and we see a need and an opportunity to bring something to do in town, and hopefully in a thriving area, which is becoming Central Road. And we're really excited to hopefully bring in an arcade. We really just are looking for your help to get what seems like an outdated ordinance taken away and hopefully rewritten to be more affordable for us to be able to start up. The way it's written now, like you said, it's $1,000 per machine. Like Rob just mentioned, it is based on being coin operated, which that's not our business plan. Our business plan is to be hourly rate to come into the facility. So coin operated really will have nothing to do with us. So whatever you guys can do and work out, we really appreciate it.
Well, we're really excited that you're coming, so we're thrilled that you're going to make Flemington your home. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Did you need something?
Yeah, I need your name, I'm sorry.
Rob, please.
Yeah, Case.
Case.
Does your business have a name?
It has a proposed name.
Go ahead.
Retrocade.
Retro what?
Retrocade. Like an arcade.
Retrocade.
Retro.
Retrocade.
Arcade.
Okay, thank
retrocade.
you.
We're hoping to not just put newer stuff, but older stuff as well. And make it more of a family center, something that adults can enjoy the older games, and the younger generation seems to enjoy the games as well. The best games.
They all the games.
So you're meaning that we only know the old.
Right now, the current plan is
The intention of,
The original.
keeping a little fee on there is not to be not friendly.
No, I
Not
understand.
welcoming to you. It's also more a matter, as I pointed out, we don't know what will come after you. And rather than having to redo it all over again if necessary, I think it was just a little bit better to put something on there, a minimal amount, just to allow us to be able to know what's happening.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who has not offered a public comment yet who would like to? Caitlin,
Also, in regards to the licensing of automatic amusement, I put one in some of the research that I was doing around it as well, and I appreciate you doing that, Councilwoman Gordon. One of the things that I particularly was attracted to was it's not only the sliding scale fee, but okay, 1 to 10 machines is this much flat fee, 10 to 20 is this much. So there are, I think there's a variety of ways to do it, and I'm sure you have all of those details there, but I think that potentially could be very business attractive while also covering our costs. And I do think it's important to just make sure that the, whatever we're going to do with that information, I think there's a lot going on in the industry right now in terms of changing now the sports betting legal, stuff like that. I do have some concerns in terms of over-bureaucracy to make sure, however the licensing is enforced, however it's, whatever we're going to do with this information, and there's that balance there, and that it's done right the first time, so we don't.
Okay, Robert Shore.
So I know I have more than 3 minutes of comments, so I'm hoping you'll allow us to go another 3 minutes later on. But I want to first start back up what Caitlin just said. You know, unnecessary ordinances should not be had. My libertarian, perspective is that get rid of it. We don't need it. We don't need any more aggravation or, time spent. We're paying people to administer stuff. I see no practical reason why we need this. Yeah, you know what? You can get justification for anything if you search hard enough. But forget that. I wanted to address something that Betsy said earlier. In this project across the street, I think one of the must-haves that this council should have put forward, and I'm bringing this up again because I know I've said it twice before, maybe not in the past year, but I know I've spoken about it, but I believe one of the must-haves in this project should be a compact heat power plant or solar. I believe that there should be a municipal IP network that's in there. Listening to Michael Harris earlier, I'm thinking, one of the must-haves should be some sort of, concession for the police department, either relocating or including it. I think that those would have been some very wise must-haves in this project for everything that the developer, whoever it may be, is going to get. As far as these ordinances go, Catherine Street, again, we don't need these ordinances. We have one already. It's working fine. I drive up and down Catherine Street, I don't know how many times a day. We never have an issue in front of that court over there. And giving the police, only the police, the privilege to use those parking spaces, I think is wrong. It's just wrong. I have seen times when news media is parked in those spaces, and your ordinance would prohibit that. And you know what? Transparency comes from our news media, and prohibiting them from using it is a problem. But even, prohibiting me from using it, because I park there occasionally and run across the street, because all the parking on the street in front of my house doesn't, enable me to get there. So I think we don't need any more restrictions to this ordinance. I think we should just do away with it, leave it the way it is, and have at it. I'm anxious to know what this $475,000 bond ordinance is, and what that money is going to be used for. Is this something we've already spent, we have to bond for, or what do we do?
salary ordinance, there's no comments about the salary ordinance. A little synopsis on the first reading would give me enough information to decide whether I want to go a bit deeper and find out more about it. So when I see these ordinances, I always question the necessity of them. And the last comment I have is around the water and sewer department. Again, administrative part. Now, this is one going to come back here.
Yeah, please.
Sally does, by the way, put the draft resolution.
Okay, who else would like to speak here? Chris Engelhardt?
Last month I was in this room at the Preservation New Jersey meeting, and I just want to read some things into the record about tourism. It was really interesting. And I'm not going to list this, but I hope it goes to the record. Heritage tourism is good business. There's 11 million visits in New Jersey, $12.8 million in visitor spending. It supports 38,000 jobs, 750 million in federal, state, and local taxes. 8% of the state's tourism industry is heritage tourism. And then if you want to go into the arts, which obviously is subsection, but in New Jersey, there's $520 million spent on the arts. It supports over 14,000 jobs. It has 41 billion state local funds that the arts bring to communities in New Jersey. In all this big development and revitalizing our town, the arts and history, historic tourism is not even addressed at all. And it's good business, and it's in our master plan, it's in the county plan about cultural tourism and the arts and history and all of that, because it's good business. We keep saying this new development is good business, but they're not even addressing what's proven to be good business. And the thing is, everyone says, well, we have to fix this town and we'll just make new buildings. What's wrong with the buildings we have? The problem is the buildings are static. They are at the mercy of the owners. Just because you swap a new building instead of an old one doesn't mean anything's going to change. It has to do with the owners maintaining the buildings, getting the proper tenants, and a culture of the town that believes in the arts and historic tourism. It can happen here, but you don't throw out the best that we have. Just because you change a building doesn't mean it changes the climate in this town. And I think, we could adapt the buildings, adapt the uses, what we want, so we keep the best of the past and embrace the future. We're not stuck in the past. We want to embrace the best of the past and embrace the best of the future. It can be done.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Who else would like to speak? Lois Stewart?
Lois Stewart, 26 Spring Street. I just want to put my word in the pond about the parking on Catherine Street. They have a place for old people to drop off their medicines there in the courthouse. And I go there and I park in front there in that space and race in with my unneeded medicines. And I don't want to have to go down to that big parking lot or park up someplace to drop off these medicines. I don't think I agree with what other people have said. I think we should have that space, a limited time, yes, but for anybody who has a quick entrance and exit from that courthouse should be allowed to use those spaces. So please don't make me walk.
That's a good comment. Thank you.
I might have to dump them down the sewer, which is not permitted. I wanted to ask about why are the flower pots at Church dry. I mean, I just know that I obviously am more observant than many people, but when you come up Church Street, the pots are not on the sidewalk, they're up in the cemetery. If they're going to be in the cemetery, why don't we get rid of them or put them someplace else?
Were they put there for the parade?
No, they've been there for a while. They were there all winter, and I understood when they were plowing snow, but we're not going to plow snow in the spring, so they really should. And the last comment I have is the building next to the Fabric Center on Main Street is empty. I think it was some kind of a vape shop or something, whatever that is. And there is a projecting sign out there that says vape shop. I thought our ordinance required signs to be taken down when businesses left the building. So could somebody check why we're advertising?
Mark, can you check with Jeff Klein? We'll check on that. Okay, thank you. All right, Ken Miller?
Ken Miller, with 22 years gathered with Joe my life, as I said before, but I think we're really being a horse here with the redevelopment. We have somebody that has a good plan, and I think could put Flemington back to where it was at one time. He's got great ideas. I've seen the plans. He brings in so many people into Barron Township out of his fields. And all these people, they don't stay here. There's no place for them to stay. Stay at Hampton Inn, some there. But most of them go to Somerville, Brantford, Raritan Borough, okay? And I coached baseball for many years. And I see what he's done to this area and the people that he brings in. And yes, he's a businessman. Let's get that straight. He wants to make a dollar, but you know what? He wants to revitalize this town. And I don't think he's greedy. I don't think that, and that's not fair. You don't personally know him. Please, and again, 3 minutes to talk, and it's all good. Again, my relatives were here. Every stone wall you see in this town was built by my grandfather, my great-grandfather, or uncles. My grandmother was mayor at one time. She was councilwoman at one time. So I know what this place is like. You probably remember her, Hazy Miller. Okay,
please don't debate.
So anyway, what I'm trying to say is I feel that we're being a dead horse with this. We have so many things that this guy could bring in to us and develop. We're talking about arts, entertainment, right? This anywhere, right? That stuff is bringing in. I know I'm not a associate director anyway, but it's part of it. I'm sorry. That's how I am. I like to talk. So I've had my mouth shut long enough. Now I'd like to talk.
We're glad to hear.
But anyway, I'd like to come to more meetings. I appreciate your time, but I really just think about it. If we don't go along with this, who's going to take it over? We're going to go another 15, 20 years before something gets to go. Who is in line now to do something? Is there anybody? Somebody said something about Flemington LLC. Is this something I missed? Is there somebody else that's involved besides Mr. Cuss to do something here across the street?
No, that's the group that is
that's
opposing.
Exactly. Okay. So what do they have to plan? What is something down? Is there a plan for that? So if he decides to turn away and not do it, what happens then? You just go another 20 years without putting anything across the street? I would love that hotel. I've got pictures of my grandfather in that hotel. I don't want to see it destroyed. Put it now. It needs to be. It needs to be. And if he can keep parts of it, that would be a good thing. I think that's what he said he wants to try to do. But I could bring in many pictures of this courthouse with my grandparents and other people. I had a jury member that was a relative who did the house case. It's just so much history here, and I understand that. But you know what? We've got to move forward too. We have to. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Al Brewer.
Yes, Al Brewer, One Compromise Village, and council. The comment really has to do with the recent conversation about the parking space across from Robert's House or Cabinet or Courthouse. I don't see why we can make any changes to what's existing there if we simply use the access from the back of the building. Direct all character services and other overflows to the back to go through to the business they need to be done. We still have 15 minutes and plenty to change those signs. We don't have to fuss over nothing. park out front. They don't need to park out front. Not even that big courthouse that we have on all those parking spaces, for all the offices, and prosecutor's office, use that, but there's access there. Plenty of space for people to park, so that we don't inconvenience average citizens. What we do is simplify, when we go up to the second floor, take their paper, stamp it, and move on and conduct their business. I just think that the solution is right there. They just need to enforce it and redirect some of the time.
Okay, thank you, Al. All right, who has not spoken twice? Tony Previn. Go ahead.
You haven't heard the discussions here over the last several months and everything. I'm going to reiterate what Robert Shore says, in regards to our budget situation here in the near future. I believe that Flemington at this point needs a quantum leap. We need a new Flemington story. And I truly believe that if you have all open minds and you look at the picture that's around us, the new Flemington story is Flemington-Raritan. A merger makes sense. These police officers, for a few years under contract, were put down, the money, things aren't looking good here. And at the last minute, they come in and says, "Hey, you know what? We got to get a little bump here." And that's only because we're operating in the small sphere. Okay? As I said at that meeting, and I was very disgruntled because most people here said, "Hey, we need a discussion on this," because it's about the taxpayers, as Robert says. I've been a long-time taxpayer here. And I know this is a small town, and I know the generation of funds for a police department in this type of small environment is a tough deal. You could ask Raritan. Raritan says the same thing. Their police, they generate what they earn. It's a bigger township. There's more action. There's more people. Okay? Here, we're just fighting the inevitable. We don't need 2 police chiefs for an extra square mile, and it's going to become apparent very soon. It's becoming apparent throughout New Jersey. And like I said, together we're stronger. This gentleman here from the Raritan Township Committee, this is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. And to say that this fiefdom is going to be worse off by having a merger in a greater Flemington-Raritan area, with this as the county seat, well then we're all fooling ourselves. These guys could get parity immediately. Yes, some junior men might be let go, but there's other employment opportunities for police departments throughout this country. But what I'm saying is we're seeing the inevitable here right now. We've got a relic across the street that nobody's being paid attention to. If this was Flemington-Raritan, would that building be that way? I doubt it. Because there'd be more people looking at it. We wouldn't have people coming down from Raritan saying, "Hey, Flemington, what are you doing with your hotel?" It would be a Flemington-Raritan situation, period.
Thank you, Tony. For anyone else who's not spoken twice? Lou Ryan.
Yes, real quick on a lighter note. I just wanted to, Lou Ryan, 445 State Highway 12, Wilmington. I want to speak a little bit from the heart about what my observations are pertaining to the Wilmington Borough. I go in there often, and I have never seen a more homelier atmosphere, more happiness, contentment, enjoyment, family orientation, no troublemakers. I'm sure the police can attest to that. I think there have been any brawls over there. Everybody well behaved. It is just something that is so enjoyable to me. And I have to commend the Borough Council for taking care of Wilmington Brewery, because I consider it an asset, a very valuable asset that, I'll tell you what, if it was up to me to protect, I would have a total rim with protection. I mean, I would do as much as I could for them, because they're certainly a major asset. And as I say, very enjoyable and meaningful to the community. Both communities, in fact, it benefits for every township as well. And I just wanted to say a few nice words about that establishment, because in conclusion, too many people, complain about something that they are not happy with. Nobody really, as often as they should, commend something when it deserves to be commended. So, on a positive note, that's my
Good.
Excuse me, no,
Don't come for Lone Eagle.
quite the contrary. All sorts of people are taking credit for Lone Eagle right now. People love it, and lots of people are taking credit for it.
Okay, is there anyone else who has not spoken twice that wishes to? Okay, we're getting close to 30 minutes. Robert, you got a third one? All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We talk about technology here and using the new technology to save money on our telephone service, which is a great idea. I think we can leverage technology in other ways to reduce expenses in this town. And one of the ways I think we should look at is what can we do about billing for our water and our other utilities, using technology. And maybe reduce that position down to a part-time position, or even if we can find a system, reduce it or eliminate it altogether. I can remember 30 years ago, we had, the clerk was Bob Howe, and we had Diane Shopman in there, and basically that was Borough Hall. Today you go into Borough Hall and there's a half dozen people in there. So, and the amount of residents in the town really hasn't changed much at all in that period of time. So I would implore you to look at other ways to leverage technology to reduce the overhead, administrative overhead in your office. I'm doing it in my business. I eliminated someone last week just because I thought, I could get rid of that position and make more money in my case. The other question I had was around the Flemington Pool. I haven't heard anything about that recently, but I was wondering where are we at with this whole, the criminal trespass charges over at the Union Hotel. No one's updated or spoken about it recently. I was wondering if maybe you could just fill us in.
Well, I can give a little anecdotal information. That doesn't flow through the Borough Council or the mayor position at all, but I think Curtis reported that the UCC charges were dismissed. Is that right, Curtis? And there's the remaining criminal trespass charge. That's strictly a law enforcement matter. A court matter at this point, and I don't know. I don't know where it is. Sorry. On the employees, by the way, we have always had a construction official. I think that you're required to. We didn't have a fire marshal at one point, but that was only because the state took it away from us a long time ago. So they were doing it, and we used to have a full-time purchasing employee. That position has also been eliminated. So we're really pretty part-time, honestly. Okay.
Hang on, Mayor, one moment. And Robert, I want to address something you said, and I mentioned it very briefly at the end of your second comment. You had mentioned about what's on the bonding ordinance. Sally does put all of that on the internet, on the historicflemington.com website. If you look under calendar for the day of the meeting, you'll see the agenda, and then you'll see another link for resolutions. And the draft resolutions are there for anybody to read before they come to the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the attorney's report. Mr. Beckelman, the report. All right, we have a motion then to pay the bills.
Second.
Okay, that's Brooke and Betsy. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Stover?
Yes.
Mr. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? Yes. Ms. Gordon? Yes.
Thank you. All right, now we come to an executive session on the agenda. We have an item already scheduled here for legal advice concerning the courthouse square redevelopment area and any other applicable matter identified during the regular meeting. There is no topic, to my knowledge, other than courthouse square legal advice. So, hearing no others from council, then can we have a motion to go into executive session for legal advice concerning the courthouse square redevelopment area?
Make the motion.
Second.
Okay, that's Michael and Betsy. Call the roll to go into exec session, please.
Ms. Stover?
Yes.
Why not?
Yes.
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 Why not?
Yes.
Okay, everyone, thank you for coming. We